Pastor Van Dorn, we're almost done. I'll have a couple of questions, but I just wanted to ask you. I didn't take much notes, but I did read the chapter when it comes to the angel and the divine council. Uh, you can take as much time as you want to. How can we summarize this chapter that contributes to the topic of the as the angel of the Lord pointing to Christ? And I know it's a vast topic. You quoted so many verses from Genesis to moving forward, but again, you can use as much time as you want to help people, because I love the topic of the divine counsel, and I just couldn't take one or two passages. The whole chapter was full with so much information. So I just leave this up to you. You know how much you want to share when it comes to this chapter.
Yeah. I mean, we could spend a whole show on this very easily. It's such an important topic. Um, that chapter took me a long time to write. I think I rewrote it like 5 different times because I wanted to make it as as in depth and comprehensive as I could, but in a chapter. I mean, how do you do that, right? That's tough because it's really a book long idea. So, well, I guess what I'll just say is just uh, I'll do this as the most basic thing that you can do. So, first of all, the divine council is this council of heavenly beings that rules the cosmos. And I take it that your listeners are familiar with it to some degree. So we don't need to go into a lot of background. But Daniel is a place where we can go to see that these beings of the divine council rule over the nations. And so they're called like the Prince of Persia or the Prince of Greece. And you have Michael, who is the Prince of Israel. He's given a proper name, whereas the other two don't have a proper name. And and this goes back to Deuteronomy chapter 32, and it goes back to the Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel has 70 nations, and the nations are divided by their tongues because of what they did at Babel. And in Deuteronomy 32, which is Moses' second song, he talks about how if you go back and you remember the days of old, God divided the nations according to the number of the sons of God. Now, the sons of God are these princes of Daniel, the prince of Persia, the prince of Greece. I believe, a side note, that the prince of Rome is Satan, which is why he's so important in the New Testament. But that's another discussion. I've talked about that in other places. Um, but so these beings rule over the nations. They were given authority over them. Really, almost as Dr. Heiser talked about it, as punishment. It was punishment for what we did at the Tower of Babel, but it was also punishment for what they did at the Tower of Babel because they have to rule over us, and we're pretty lame, worthless, sinful creatures. So we kind of get what we deserve. That's the way Mike talked about it in the unseen realm. And so how does this relate to the angel of the Lord? Well, this is a verse that even Mike didn't talk a whole lot about, and I think I really wish he would have talked more about it. But right after it says that the sons of God were divided, and they get their inheritance, then it says in Deuteronomy 32:9, but the Lord is Israel's inheritance, and Jacob is his allotment. Now, what that means is that sons are the ones that receive inheritances, not not just God in his essence, not certainly not the father. The father doesn't receive an inheritance. Sons receive inheritances. So when it says that the Lord's portion is Israel and Jacob is his allotted inheritance, that means that the Lord there has to be the son. Has to be the son. He is inheriting Israel, whereas the other sons of God inherited their nations. By the way, all the old ancient peoples understood this. They all had a concept of the divine council.
Your mic went on mute. Sorry, if you can repeat couple last
Well,
sentences.
that's kind of weird. I wasn't even touching it. God doesn't. Yeah, this stuff happens whenever you start talking about this. That's happened in so many podcasts I've done. So, where was I? What was the last thing you heard?
Well, you were revealing the identity of the Lord in Deuteronomy 32, who is inheriting these nations,
Right.
and how we omit this understanding, and we don't understand.
Right. So the Lord in Deuteronomy 32:9 has to be the Son of God. Has to be, because sons receive inheritances. It's not the Father, it's not God in his essence, it's the Son of God, which means that he is the angel of the Lord. He's the angel of the Lord, and he's the Lord, and he's the Son of God. And where this becomes so fantastic to me, there's like a little mini storyline that you can read with just really three passages that will tell you the whole storyline of the Old Testament. The first one is that Deuteronomy 32:9. The second one is Psalm 2. And this is the famous psalm where the nations are raging and the peoples are plotting in vain, and the Lord is laughing at them. And there's two lords there. There's one in heaven who's laughing, and then there's another one who's holding them in derision. And then you have this verse, Psalm 2, 6-8.
Okay, so Psalm 2, verses 6 to 8. As for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son, capital S. You are my son. Today I have begotten you. And just to explain theologically, begotten does not mean created you. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage and the ends of the earth your possession.
Right. So verse 7 is
Mhm.
one of the most quoted verses in the New Testament about Jesus. But verse 8 comes
Mhm.
right out of Deuteronomy 32, verse 9. In Deuteronomy 32, the son receives Israel as his inheritance. In Psalm 2:8, ask of me, I will make the nations your inheritance and the end of the earth your possession. This is divine counsel language, because it's the divine counsel that gets the inheritance. All right, we made
And
it
this
through
is
that.
yeah, and
So
this is
let's
I
go
just
to
want to add one sentence.
go
It's
for it.
so interesting. It's so interesting because Jesus inherits Israel, but then when he's incarnated in the new covenant, then through the gospel he gets to inherit all the countries of the
That's
planet
exactly it.
and retrieve what was given to the sons of God who failed God and didn't judge well, didn't hold their positions properly. Now Jesus is getting the whole planet under his wings.
Exactly. So the last passage from the Old Testament is Psalm 82, verse 8. And that verse says, arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. So there was a promise in Psalm 2. If you ask, I'll give them to you. Now, Psalm 82 is the fulfillment of it. Now you're going to receive the inheritance of the nations. But why? Because in Psalm 82, God is judging the divine for having ruled wickedly. And so the son receives the inheritance in verse 8.